Hello and welcome back to English Book Club. This is Dracula Part 2. My name is Kathy and in this book club series I'm discussing popular works of fiction in English. And in this video I'm going to read some extracts from the beginning of the story and discuss the language a little. So in my previous video, we talked about the inspiration behind Dracula, some of the themes in the novel and some of the characters. And now we're going to look at the language and think about how Bram Stoker, the author, builds up suspense and anxiety. Ooh. First, here are some words from Jonathan Harker, the young solicitor, when he first arrives at the castle of Count Dracula. Does he feel excited or nervous, and why? I must have been asleep, for certainly, if I had been fully awake, I must have noticed the approach to such a remarkable place. In the gloom, the courtyard looked of considerable size, and as several dark ways led from it under great round arches, it perhaps seemed bigger than it really is. I have not yet been able to see it by daylight. I stood in silence where I was, for I did not know what to do. Of bell or knocker there was no sign. Through these frowning walls and dark window openings, it was not likely that my voice could penetrate. The time I waited seemed endless, and I felt doubts and fears crowding upon me. What sort of place had I come to, and among what kind of people? What sort of grim adventure was it on which I had embarked? I began to rub my eyes and pinch myself to see if I were awake. It all seemed like a horrible nightmare to me, and I expected that I should suddenly awake and find myself at home with the dawn struggling in through the windows, as I had now and again felt in the morning after a day of overwork. But my flesh answered the pinching test, and my eyes were not to be deceived. I was indeed awake and among the Carpathians. All I could do now was to be patient and to wait the coming of the morning. So I would say here he's definitely feeling nervous. What language is he using? He talks about gloom and darkness. He describes the place as large, with frowning walls and dark window openings. The place feels large, so by contrast, it makes him feel small and perhaps uncomfortable as a result, because it seems unfriendly. He's waiting, but very uncertain, and he talks about a grim adventure and a horrible nightmare where he's not sure if he's awake or dreaming. So he's quite obviously very worried, and by using these terms, he's making us as readers also very clearly worried about what is going to happen next. Now let's hear about his welcome. Just as I had come to this conclusion, I heard a heavy step approaching behind the great door, and saw through the chinks the gleam of a coming light. Then there was the sound of rattling chains and the clanking of massive bolts drawn back. A key was turned and the great door swung back. Within stood a tall old man, clean shaven, save for a long white moustache, and clad in black from head to foot, without a single speck of colour about him anywhere. He held in his hand an antique silver lamp, in which the flame burned without chimney or globe of any kind, throwing long, quivering shadows as it flickered in the draught of the open door. The old man motioned me in with his right hand with a courtly gesture, saying in excellent English, but with a strange intonation, "Welcome to my house. Enter freely and of your own will." He made no motion of stepping to meet me, but stood like a statue, as though his gesture of welcome had fixed him into stone. The instant, however, that I had stepped over the threshold, he moved impulsively forward and, holding out his hand, grasped mine with a strength which made me wince, an effect which was not lessened by the fact that it seemed as cold as ice, more like the hand of a dead than a living man. Now, this is classic horror story stuff, isn't it? A strange, dark place, a great door making horrible noises, a strange, inexpressive man with a handshake that is cold. Ooh, is that giving you the shivers? Because it should. Now, let's jump finally to a description of the host, Count Dracula. How do you think he will be described? Let's find out. His face was strong, very strong, aquiline, with a high bridge of the thin nose and peculiarly arched nostrils, with lofty domed forehead and hair growing scantily around the temples but profusely elsewhere. His eyebrows were very massive, almost meeting over the nose, and with bushy hair that seemed to curl in its own profusion. The mouth, as so far as I could see it under the heavy moustache, was fixed and rather cruel looking, with peculiarly sharp white teeth. These protruded over the lips. For the rest, his ears were pale and at the tops were extremely pointed. The chin was broad and strong, and the cheeks firm, though thin. The general effect was one of extraordinary pallor. I had noticed the backs of his hands as they lay on his knees in the firelight, and they had seemed rather white and fine, but seeing them now close to me, I could not but notice that they were rather coarse, broad, with squat fingers, and strange to say, there were hairs in the centre of the palm, and the nails were long and fine and cut to a sharp point. As the Count leaned over me and his hands touched me, I could not repress a shudder. It may have been that his breath was rank, but a horrible feeling of nausea came over me, which I could not conceal. The Count drew back with a grim sort of smile, which showed more than he had yet done of his protuberant teeth, sat himself down again. We were both silent for a while, and as I looked towards the window, I saw the first dim streak of the coming dawn. There seemed a strange stillness over everything, but as I listened, I heard, as if from down below in the valley, the howling of many wolves. The Count's eyes gleamed, and he said, "Listen to them, the children of the night. What music they make." Now, what do you think of that description? Can you use these adjectives and phrases to create an image in your mind of Count Dracula? He has massive eyebrows, a cruel mouth with teeth that stick out. Well, surprise, he's a vampire. His fingers have long pointed nails. His breath appears to be rank, which is another word for it smells. His face is very pale, and he seems to speak very fondly of the wolves howling down in the valley. So how do you feel about having an evening meal with this character as your host in a strange, dark castle? If it doesn't worry you, then you're braver than I am. These extracts show how adjectives and descriptive phrases can create image, mood, and atmosphere in your mind as you read. Well, maybe you've picked up some new words or interesting ideas from this video. If you have, please do let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you next time with a different story in English Book Club. Keep reading, and bye for now.